Good morning, people of YouTube. It's Ty again. So, today we are coming to you with my tournament report for the TopCut Webcam tournament that took place on Saturday, sponsored by Bandai and TopCut Gaming. I took 8th place in the event with Leopardmon Aggro. Now, there were 250 people in the event. The event ran very smoothly. So, I come from a Yu-Gi-Oh background. So I come from a game where people lie, cheat, and steal a lot. It's not all the community, it's just a couple players, and I'm not trying to do this video to talk bad about Yu-Gi-Oh, but I understand from a TCG perspective some of the things that can go wrong when you're hosting an event. That being said, all of my opponents were very nice. One of them kind of wasn't, but like 7 of them were. One of them wasn't. It was a good event. It ran smoothly. Judges came when you asked for them, and time was handled well. So we're just going to go right into what happened for the event. My round 1, I played against Gallantmon, Omnimon, the red build. And that round 1 was a tie. It was game 1, I kind of ran away with it, blew him out of the water. He managed to Gallantmon one of my Vidramon away using his deletion effect, since he had a tamer on board, to get rid of something with 6,000 or less power. My starter deck tie only works on my turn, so that really set me back. But I was able to use my memory borrowers to push in a way that he couldn't recover from. And I believe I ended that board with Metal Seedramon and just put all of the cards that he was going to swing for game with back in his hand. So yes, while he could swing with the Gallantmon, it wasn't enough. And then game 2, he just kind of ran away with it. Like Red Omnimon does. I got Omnimon twice, I believe, and it just wasn't a good time. I started to claw my way back into the game, and I did the big push, and he responded to it, and this time he had the outs. So I lost from there. But in game 3, we went into time, and this was one of the only issues I had during the entire event, and it was just an honest miscommunication. Whenever time was called, we messaged for the judge because we weren't familiar with the end of match procedures for this specific webcam tournament. Every TO has different end of match procedures, especially in a new game. With Yu-Gi-Oh, it's Konami, so they have their own set rules, whether they're good or not, and they follow those. But since this is a new game, we had to call the judge, and there was a misunderstanding. We were supposed to go 5 minutes or 3 turns, and we were told to just end the game in a draw. So had we played it out, honestly, I have no idea who would have won that game. It was very close. My opponent was very skilled, and he was playing very well. And yeah, honest to goodness tie with the red Gallantmon Omnimon matchup. If this deck is going to lose to any red deck, it is going to be Gallantmon, because Gallantmon can deal with the cards that you want to put on the board. That being said, this deck does not have a bad matchup against it, because this deck pushes harder than that deck does. So it's kind of a game of chicken with your opponent, and it's just whoever ekes out the victory before the other one. In my game 2, I played against a green player, another really nice guy. He wasn't able to get all of the product that he wanted, so he wasn't playing like his optimal build of green. But he still had 2 Rosemon, double Puppetmon, a bunch of Titamons. He had, I think, 3 Flower Cannons in his deck, so he wasn't even really missing a whole lot. But he was playing some really cool techs in the deck, like Giga Blaster, which is that rare green option that nobody's ever heard of from set 1. And honestly, in the game 2, I hit that in security, and that sealed the game. It was a good game. It was a great game. Game 1, was the one time Volcanic Dramon ever did anything in the entire tournament. And uh, game 2 was I got blown out of the way by the Giga Blaster hitting in security. And then game 3 was just kind of clean in my favor. He never really got anything set up, and he could never respond to any of my pushes. And it wasn't anything that he did wrong. It's just he didn't draw as optimally as he could have. And I drew the nuts. So that's just how it goes sometimes when you're playing a TCG. My third game, so going into this event right now, I have 1 win, 1 tie, no losses. Round 3, I play against a purple toolbox player, or value purple, but he was playing all of the purple cards, like the Garurumon, the Wargreymon, the Metal Garurumon, like every Garurumon that's purple, he was in there. And he got the combo on me where he had all of those in the line, and a Tsukaimon's under all of his Wizardmons and all of his blockers. So whenever he swung with the Metal Garurumon, he brought out another unit that he could use for later, while sacrificing the thing that gained him memory and let him draw cards. So it was a scary matchup. Honest to goodness, nail biter the whole time. If I recall correctly, game 1 I took. Game 2, he got that Metal Garurumon combo off on me. And then when I started to push back, he evolved that into a Millenniummon and put my Leopardmon on the bottom of my deck right before I was able to Omnimon him. So, just how it goes. And then game 3 happens, and Veedramon gets in there. It's what Veedramon does. And we go to time because I wasn't able to finish him off before time was called, because we were having a good time. We were chit-chatting. We kind of let things get away from us, but he was such a nice opponent that it was hard not to want to talk to him. But we go into time, and I'm able to clinch it out on the last turn of time. We were the last match playing in the round. The judge actually came in to our stream and was like, hey, where are you guys at? And then time was called on his turn, so it was he was turn 0, I was turn 1, he was turn 2, and I was turn 3, and that was the final turn. On that final turn was when I made my attack for game. And had time not have been called, and he would have been able to stall it out a bit more, maybe I wouldn't have won that game. But I did. And again, nicest opponent. A lot of my opponents were super cool, and his deck was different from the purple that I was expecting to go against. So it was just great. Going into round 4, this was my 1 loss of the day. I played against a green control deck, and when we got into the tournament, or when we got into that round, he was complaining about how his last opponent was cheating him the entire time, which is not cool, to say the least. But then he goes and does all of the sketchy things against me that he was describing that his first opponent did to him. Like, he was holding his hand off the camera, like he was sitting over here the whole time, and playing to a map that's over here, and drawing this way. So I couldn't see anything he was doing the whole time. He always had everything he needed in his hand. And I dead drew. But he got the Titamon, Lilymon, Dimension Scissor combo off on me twice in one game. He was a player who was playing multiple copies of Dimension Scissor in his deck. And I got swiftly 2-0'd. I dead drew both games. And honestly, I don't know if he was playing 100% fairly, but I have no proof of anything, and I don't want to talk about what could have been because I am very proud of how I did in the event. Round 5 was against a black Reboot Wargreymon deck. And let me tell you, this was another one of those games that this deck just annihilates. It was a swift 2-0. We had a webcam go out in the middle of game 1 when I had game on board, and he called the judge, and the judge let us pick up right from where we left off because I was only gone we were only disconnected from each other for about 2 minutes. And it's one of those things that when Discord goes out, what do you do? Like, if it's out on both ends, neither of you can really do anything. Neither of you really see what's going on. So I, the logical person, disconnected or ended the call and restarted it, which made it work. Because I did that, he was trying to give me a game loss because he said that my camera disconnected, which is true because I ended the call and fixed the problem. In situations like this, don't be the proactive one. Let them take the L for you, because if the judge, he's right, the judge could have logged in, see that I was the one that ended the call, and decided to give me the game loss. But the judge saw the position on board, he saw the security, I was at 5 security, he was at 0, I had an Omnimon, a Vidramon, and a Gorillamon in play, and he goes, yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, the webcam disconnected literally the second before I swung for game, which is a little sketchy, but, again, it's a webcam tournament, so you do what you do. And then game 2 was it was swift. I opened 2 Gorillamon and drew another one fairly early into the game. And I put some ties in board, and they just kept swinging over Gardramons, and it was a position where I just took out a single security every turn until he was dead with a Gorillamon, while the other 2 kept swinging over his blockers. And it was great. It was Gorillamon beat the deck. He spider shootered me a lot, which was annoying because I did get to Omnimon him, and he spider shootered me back down to a level 5, which is hilarious. But that doesn't help him, because then that just means I get to Leopardmon him again and call something else out. So the spider shooter actually put him in a worse position than when he started, which I think is hilarious. Round 6, I went against a purple Turbo Millenniumon build sort of thing. And it was a lot of fun. This is the second purple matchup I went against for this tournament at this point. And, the purple match the first time kind of gave me all the tools I needed to understand how to win the game. And that was another one of those situations where Ty plus Vidramon just kept swinging over the Vilemons. And it was a swift 2-0. And going into round 7, we played against another purple toolbox build. He was running some Piedmons, some Beelzemons, some Lilithmons. And let me tell you something about purple players. All of the purple players I have played against were the nicest people ever. But Vidramon Leopardmon destroys that deck. So I'm sorry to all of the people that I played against that played purple. I got lucky matchups. But that was just a swift 2-0 again. It was Vidramon and friends, the game. I Gaia Forced him a couple times, and I believe it was this man who evolved into, or one of his games, he just hard played Lilymon because game 2 he opened dead. And his second turn, he swings that Lilithmon, or I'm sorry, his third turn, he swings that Lilithmon into security and hits a Gaia Force straight away. So I'm sorry to him, but again, you're playing TCGs. That's kind of what happens sometimes. My next game, game 8, was against a purple Piedmon deck. This was Hugh Blaskies. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This was the match against him. He streamed it on Twitch, so if you check out my last video in the description, there's a link to that stream. I'll probably link it again in this video. But we actually played on his Twitch stream, and yeah, that was a super fun game. The games were longer and more drawn out. He pulled his Piedmons when he needed to, but in the end, both games, I just took it from him with Vidramon. And the last game, specifically, I was sitting on Leopardmon, Vidramon, and Leomon, and I had him in a position where if my Leomon ever died against his security, I was going to go off because he kept memory choking me. And so I kept memory choking him back. Again, this is another reason why you play the 2-cost tie from the red starter deck, because if your opponent leaves you with 1 memory, you can get all your attacks in and then play that tie, and then it's their turn and they only have 1 memory. So my 2-cost vanillas and tie really put in the work for that game. And when we were in our game 2, he was in a position to try to push back to win the game, and he left me with 8 memory because he dropped a Piedmon, brought back 2 Vilemon when he already had 1 on board, and so I just evolved my Leopardmon into an Omnimon, and that sealed the game. Omnimon with Zudomon under it kept getting me more memory, which made it so that he could never get back into the game. And it was just, again, this deck just destroys purple. If you are losing to purple playing your deck, give this deck a shot, because you won't ever lose to purple. In addition, some thoughts on my matchups. Green is definitely the hardest matchup for this deck. Easily. They can memory choke you and make it so that you don't want to set up your board, because they can just Puppetmon you or Dimension Scissor you or drop a Rosemon and put a halt to your shenanigans. It's a hard matchup, but it is not unwinnable. I went against 2 green players, 4 purple players, a black player, and a red player. I won one of the greens, lost one of the greens, tied the red guy, and beat the black player and all 4 of the purple players. So I do think green is this deck's hardest matchup, and I believe that this deck has a winning matchup against Omnimon Blue, which I was expecting to play a lot more of in this event. That's one of the reasons I brought this deck to the tournament, was because I was very confident in that matchup. This deck just outpaces Omnimon Blue, and you aggro them a lot harder and earlier game than they can put aggression on you. And if they ever do get to a point where they can drop the Omnimon, you just go wide instead of tall against them and make it so that they have to choose what they want to kill on your side of the field, and then you just take out the rest of their security with everything that they left you. So I don't think that if I went against an Omnimon player, I would have lost. I didn't lose to Omnimon the whole tournament. Like, the worst I did was I tied the Gallantmon Omnimon player. And again, it was one of those situations where if we played it out, who knows what would have happened. I'm accepting the tie in that game because, it was a good opponent and it could have gone to either of us. I don't typically like ties in card games, just because if you win, you get 3 points towards your tournament total, and if you tie, you only get 1, so it really sets you back because there's only so many rounds that you have to acquire points. But it is what it is. Overall, the entire tournament was a very positive experience. To anybody questioning whether they should enter one of these in the future, I would say definitely. It was a lot of fun. I met a lot of good people. And yeah, it was a great time. So I had a bunch of people asking me what other cards I would consider running in this list. If you can't afford something like Omnimon, or if there's just a couple cards in the deck you don't like. Maybe you want to replace the Volcanic Dramon, or maybe you don't like Metal Sea Dramon and you want to take it out. I think that's a bad choice because Metal Sea Dramon is busted in this deck, but you do you. I'm going to show you guys the list. This is the deck. Give you a second to pause that so you can screenshot it. But going into some other cards that I was considering, bumping this Gomamon up is a great decision. Playing 15 rookies in this deck is a great idea, so bumping this card up would be phenomenal. I had a third one in this deck, but I took it out to add a second copy of Gaia Force. Speaking of Gaia Force, if you don't have Omnimons, play a third copy of this, because they do similar things, and this card is significantly cheaper to obtain than this card. And a lot of the times you really don't even want to evolve on top of your level 6s. So he's only in there to, again, make sure that you would win games that you otherwise normally wouldn't. Yeah, the best thing Blue has in their disposal as far as options goes is Cactus Breath, and I don't like that card at all. I would rather play this any day of the week. More cards I would bump up. Plesioman, obviously. This card is nuts. I would definitely take out Volcanic Dramon for a second one of these. I was playing more Leomon, but I cut them for more Gorillamon, because I wasn't originally playing for Gorillamon. If you don't have Veedramons, this is another good card that you can replace them with. Monzaemon is another good card because it will let you get into your Leopardmons faster. I really don't mind hard playing this. And I would consider bumping this up. I only played one in my original list, and I don't think that that was the wrong decision. But I do think that it is a good enough card to justify playing more of in this deck, even though this is an Omnimon Turbo. So starting to cards that I was playing that I did cut, we have Armadillomon. So this card is really nuts with tie. If you get one tie in play, this card is a 5,000 power level 3, which doesn't sound that great at first, but you can swing over Devimon, you can trade with everything in Rookie Rush, and if you get 2 ties on the board, then this card trades with blockers as a 2-cost vanilla. So this card is definitely worth considering, but the space is tight in this deck, so I didn't decide to include this in the final build. Another card we cut that we were playing originally because of space is Mad Dog Fire. This card does a similar thing to tie, and this card is busted in combination with Veedramon. If you have a tie in play and Veedramon, and then you activate this on the Veedramon, you have a 10,000 power Digimon that can attack twice. It was good, but I ultimately cut this card for more copies of tie. Because I was originally only playing one of these, and I was playing these cards. The Promo Tie and the Tamer, or the Memory Setter Tamer Matt dude. This card is trash, and this card is inconsistent. Your deck doesn't revolve around removing evolution sources. The only card in the deck that even cares is Zudomon and your Upamon. So this never came up, and the 4 cost was just too much for me. Setting your memory to 3 every turn is nice, but you have the Gomamons, you have Hammerspark, you have Leomon, you have your Memory Borrower. If you need more memory, you have ways to get it that are better than this, so I decided not to play this. And this card is really good. This is a great card. However, it's inconsistent. I'm only playing 3 Vidramon in this list. You have to have a Vidramon in play to use it. The red tie is just better for this deck list. Yeah, drawing cards is nice, and I'm never going to say that drawing cards isn't nice, but you draw enough in this deck that you really don't need this card. If you do decide to play this card, I would also run a couple copies of Vidramon Zero. But I can't recommend that because this card requires a blue tamer to use all of his skills, and tie is red. This Vidramon does not specify, it only specifies for its inheritable skill that it needs a blue tamer, which you don't care about because it's a good skill, but your goal is to put Vidramon back out onto the field once you evolve on top of him. So he's never in your Digivolution sources. This card is good, but it doesn't accomplish anything in this deck, so I can't justify running it. Now, this is one of the main cards that if you were going to cut Omnimons for something, I would put this card in. Now, that might sound very weird, but hear me out. One of the things that I needed in the tournament was more level 5s, and to mitigate that, what I did was I played cards that drew me a bunch of cards, so that I would just have a big hand. So if I needed something, chances are it was sitting in there. If you cut the level 7s from this deck, then it gives you a little bit more wiggle room with your mid-range plays. And this is a phenomenal mid-range play. Getting a tie in play with this puts this on par with every level 6, which is nuts. And this is a card that I would play in this deck instead of Monzemon moving forward when I expect everybody to have all of the product. I thought Monzemon was essential because it was cheap for this specific tournament, but in January, when everybody has everything that they want, I would play this because this does more of what the deck is supposed to do. Final thoughts. Again, tournament was great. I had a great time. I had one discrepancy with one player, and it was over a webcam. So it wasn't even a good indication of that man's character or anything that he stands for. So chances are he's a really great person. We just had a misunderstanding. The tournament was a blast. The judges took care of everything in a timely fashion. Again, we had one miscommunication in round 1, but it was an honest miscommunication, and it happens. I wouldn't change how I built this deck for the event. I think all of my decisions were solid, and I had reasonings behind all of them, even though all of the cards didn't necessarily carry their weight the same. Like I said, Volcanic Dramon just was underwhelming, and it was only because I didn't play against Rookie Rush. Had I gone against Rookie Rush, I might be singing a different tune. But yeah, that's just me rambling about the tournament. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe if you're into all of that. Standard things that the YouTubers tell you to do, but that's my video, guys. We got more deck lists coming. Stay tuned.